Good evening, friends. If you can find your way to your seats, I know folks are still trickling in. I'm Senator Carrie Hicks, and I have the distinct privilege and honor of helping to facilitate tonight's evening. Um, you know, Yes, also known as I've been teaching all day. And so I am very thankful that I don't have to come up with comments for you all tonight. So a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. As you walked in, there were 2 sign-up sheets at the back. If you would like to speak, we're just asking that you would sign up or sign in so that we have a good idea of how many folks we have in the queue, and so that we can also try and do our very best to maximize our time tonight. So I appreciate that. Additionally, we are also recording tonight's event. So I just wanted to make everyone aware that we are recording tonight. So if you are speaking, make sure that you press the speak button. It's super simple. The little guy's face. It goes hot. There should be a light at the top of the microphone, and that's how you know it's ready. And we will have folks helping to facilitate that when it's time. So without further ado, I am joined by other colleagues who don't have official duties tonight. So I wanted to make sure that you all got to meet them. So first, starting to my right, your left, we have State Representative Trish Ranson, former educator in Stillwater. I'm going to skip over the next one and head straight to our Senate leader, our Senate Democratic leader, Julia Kurt. Representative Ellen Pogmiller, who has done lots of things for education before she got to the state capitol. Representative Jacob Rosecrans, who is also a former educator. Representative Andy Fugate, who plays a mean horn. Right? Yeah. And then let's see, we also have a former state rep who is a current county commissioner. We're joined tonight by Jason Lowe. And if anybody else pops in throughout the night, I'll make sure that you know who they are, because this truly is a public meeting. We hope that we are among friends and mixed company of every political persuasion. Tonight's objective is truly to have an honest conversation. And to me, we can't have an honest conversation about what we hope can happen in education if we are afraid to engage in critical thinking and critical conversation. So thank you all so much for being brave and coming out tonight to lend your voice, lend your ideas and your solutions to the challenges that we're currently facing in education in the state of Oklahoma. So now I get to introduce our first speaker. This is Leader-elect Melissa Provenzano from Tulsa. She is a former classroom teacher and former school principal, and she is going to give us an update on the state of education. Rep. Provenzano.
Thank you so much. I'll be brief. I have had several questions about why don't you do this in Tulsa? And I think if this goes well, and it looks like it will, no matter what gets said or done, people have had their say. And I'm excited to do that, because we don't get that a lot here at the Capitol. So I'm looking forward to hearing whatever folks have to say. And then we look forward to taking it on the road. Representative Rosecrans was like, let's go to Guyman. Let's go to, all these. And I'm like, okay, let's get a big school bus. I'm like, well, let's start with tonight. And so, because he's ready to go. So I'm very excited. Thank you to everyone who drove all the way over here. I recognize a lot of Tulsa faces, and that's exciting. I know we all recognize school has started and the teachers are doing the work right now. So just a shout out to everyone that is staying up late to grade papers, lesson plan, and figure out how do we help that kid who's struggling, or 10 kids who are struggling, and so on. I know all the teachers in the room miss it who aren't currently in the classroom. Mostly, right? Mostly. Yeah. I did find as a high school principal that when I came here, I'm like, oh, this is a lot like running a high school building. Anyway. A couple of things. It's hard not to pay attention. And when I'm making calls and reaching out to folks here in Oklahoma, what is the number one issue that matters to you? Public education. 99% of the time. What is going on? Why are we 50th? And to that, I would say, there are a lot of teachers that are still in the classroom that are teaching from when we were 17th in the nation. And so let's honor the teachers and think about that for just a minute and ask what happened. A bit of current affairs. I know that there are a lot of questions right now surrounding the woke test that you are seeing and wondering about it, if it is lawful. Know that we have asked the Attorney General for an opinion on that to see if and if indeed it is lawful. It looks like it is not, but then also who pays for that? How are we funding that? But it does run afoul of current law. Now, if you want to add that, come talk to us. And so that's kind of where we're at. Backing up just a little bit, there was the call to end of instruction testing. And I was like, my heart was like, yes, because any teacher that has ever given a state end of instruction test knows that it doesn't measure everything about a kid. Unfortunately, that requires the legislature to agree to. Most things do. And so we hope moving forward, while we can't just do it because we want, we're pleased to have the feedback that there are folks across the aisle on both sides and the other side and up on the upside down that would like to see those things go away. And then finally, backing up just a little bit further, the charter school that you may have seen that is moving into the state of Oklahoma as a virtual school that was offering scholarships from Arizona. If you choose to enroll your child at that school, should they become approved to offer instruction in the state of Oklahoma, all I can say is please do your homework, parents, and know what you're signing up for. They are currently working out of a post office box, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and so it's hard to get instruction through there, I think. Sarcasm aside, but please, when you're picking your child's school, know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Know the performance that they have done. And with that, I'll kind of back away and turn it back over to Senator Hicks.
When I was prepping her for her keynote comments, I just said, literally pick anything. Like, there's so much to talk about that if you just roll with it, whatever feels good. So I really appreciate Leader-elect Provenzano sharing her current thoughts. And just in time for me to be at the podium, we're also joined tonight by Senator Mary Boren from Norman. Will you come sit by me, Mary Bourne? Will you please come sit by me? Okay, so we're going to move on because these folks that are sitting here with me tonight are truly the experts. And the panelists, when we were kind of dreaming about what tonight's conversation could entail, we really wanted to think about the stakeholders, who all is impacted by education in the state of Oklahoma. And so tonight we've done a really good job of curating three. I know we advertised with four. One got stuck in Tulsa, and we totally understand. Sometimes it's not in the lesson plans, guys. You just have to roll with it. I get to introduce our panelists tonight. And this first one is very precious to me because Heather Davis is a teacher in Bartlesville, and she also taught all of my nieces and nephews. So please help me welcome Heather. And as she comes to join me up here at the platform or podium, truly what we asked them to do in their time was to share their three hopes or goals for this upcoming legislative session in 2026 on education. Heather Davis.
First, thank you for allowing me to bring the concerns of my colleagues to this panel. I spoke with several of them, and I am in a constant conversation with them. So this is an easy task to gather what they are concerned and hopeful for. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to be their voice. Our first area of concern is overwhelmingly compensation. All educators, including certified, support, and retirees, need an income that we can depend on not one that we have to fight for. In the past year, the Consumer Price Index reported that gas utilities are up 13.8%, electricity is up 5.5%, medical care is up 4.3%, groceries are up 5.2%. However, one of the educators that I spoke with reported that their weekly staples at Walmart are up by almost 20%. This is a tough increase to face for many people, but when educational professionals know that they are not having a pay increase, it really is tough. It affects our support personnel and their families in catastrophic ways. Nationally, we are ranked 45 in starting teacher salary and 51 in support salaries, and number 49 in per pupil expenditures. The argument I get most in my advocacy is that we simply don't have the revenue, and that's valid. But it's also concerning because we're throwing millions of dollars into private schools through tax credit vouchers. But I digress. We need to be actively looking for revenue streams that will be consistent and devoted so that we can come close to, if not lead, the regional average for public education expenditures. Our state has used bonds to make an 8-year plan addressing our failing bridges and general infrastructure. This could be an excellent approach for common education funding. In the same way, we need to be actively planning for the future of our state, which is embodied in the 700,000 students sitting in Oklahoma's public schools. And to be clear, this increased funding should not come with strings attached. We're already working over our contract and spending money that would be an expense account reimbursement in any other profession. Additionally, these cost of living adjustments should be automatic, perhaps triggered by the CPI or another economic metric so that we don't have to beg for a living wage or be at the mercy of the legislative whims. Ultimately, this could also help with the teacher shortage, which brings me to our next area of concern. Oklahoma is currently ranked number 13 in the nation in the area of teacher shortages. This leaves us with a great number of emergency certified educators. Many of these are really great human beings, but teaching is a science and a skill. It's not something that can be learned in 3 days of preschool training. They need a lot of support, and we simply do not have the resources to give them the support they deserve. Both of our daughters, much to our chagrin a little bit, are now public school educators. One is emergency certified. She basically has 24/7 mentoring built in between her dad, who's also a teacher, and me. However, most emergency certified teachers don't have parents who are also educators. They don't have that kind of access to mentoring, and their districts don't have the personnel or the funding to effectively support them. This is a detriment to our students, our literacy rate, and our profession, as it's creating a revolving door of educators. We need to create an environment that will not only encourage new educators to join the profession and stay, but will also support those who are in the classroom already, and will entice the 30,000 certified educators in Oklahoma who choose to not be in the classroom at this time. We'll circle back to them. Finally, there's something to be said for eliminating the costly and ineffective testing that is required by our federal government. If the State Department of Education could consistently and correctly file for an exemption to end federally mandated testing, we could bring joy back to teaching and to learning and use already existing tools such as the STAR test to immediately evaluate a student's growth or lack thereof and pinpoint their exact areas of delinquency. State testing in its current form steals not only instructional days, but it also steals the joy of learning and teaching, and it rarely provides timely and useful data. Testing in its current form costs money, a lot of money, that could be much better spent on the actual development of our greatest asset in Oklahoma, which is our kids. Now, let's circle back and revisit those 30,000 educators who choose not to be in our public school classroom. Morale is low. Our seats at the table were mocked when our standards were trashed, and outside influencers and private universities are given more credence than actual practitioners of instruction and curriculum. I fully understand that we cannot legislate behavior, especially perhaps from another elected official. I know that we cannot control another's behavior or the words that come from another's mouth. I teach middle school. I know this for a fact. Our current climate is stressful. It's demoralizing and it's exhausting. We hear constantly and continually that we, and I take this personally, are not doing a good job. I take offense with talking points that are made not for the betterment of my students or my classroom, but to garner the spotlight and grab attention for what can only be a personal agenda. When we have daily pressers that seek to belittle public schools, it'd be great if our supporters, whoever they are, would stand up in their own spotlight and loudly and boldly say, "Not in my district." Morale would most certainly go up. And maybe the truth that we do great things every day in Oklahoma public schools could outweigh the vague, divisive dishonesties that occupy our airwaves and our timelines. And maybe we make it an attractive profession for new, current, and previous educators. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the 55,000 public school educators in Oklahoma. Having a seat at this table is much appreciated.
Trying to copy down all of her notes. I mean, those were fabulous, particularly the numbers. Clearly, you've done a lot of research, and I really appreciate you being here tonight and traveling 2.5 hours. I mean, I guess if you're going this view limit, it's like 3 hours to get here. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Misty Bradley, and Misty is going to be speaking from the perspective of parents. She has kiddos in Edmond Public Schools. Misty.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of parents. I'm one of many in Oklahoma. When they talked about what our 3 goals are, and I asked the people who are part of our membership at Oklahoma Parent Legislative Advocacy Coalition, and we kept hearing the same thing over and over again. And one, it's to protect and ensure funding for public ed. They like to tell us that they've made historic investments, but inflation that we heard about, and also the siphoning of funds to private schools. It has completely depleted every advance that was made, right? So we are also asking for boundaries and parameters on how block funding may be used, because we don't necessarily trust the people who might be utilizing those or putting those in place. So expect us to be on your doorstep asking for help, getting legislation on how to protect that funding and make sure that we've got some real guardrails there. Our second goal is really properly addressing the teacher, para, and counselor shortage, because it's not just teachers that we are short on. And some might argue that it's not a shortage so much as a hostile, toxic environment, as Heather already mentioned to us. I want to read what one of our members said, who actually happens to be an educator as well. She said, "The single biggest issue, in my opinion, is the fact that we still have not properly addressed the teacher and para and counselor shortage. We have fewer people to help with struggling students. We have special education teachers with caseloads so large that they can barely meet with students. We have a ton of alt certified teachers who require coaching, thus requiring districts to use highly effective teachers to train adults rather than spend their time teaching children. And when we do have poorly performing teachers, we can't fire them because who will replace them? We have wages that are not keeping up with inflation and are not commensurate to other fields requiring the same degree level, and we have a superintendent waging war on us." I think that pretty much sums up the fact that we need to properly address those things. So I think that what we have to do as parents, what we are hoping for, is to really rise up and support those efforts, because when we support teachers, we're supporting our kids. And our third big goal is accountability. Accountability for Ryan Walters. We know that there's a list longer than my arm of things that he could and should be held accountable for. And much of it is that toxic environment. We need accountability for getting us out of last place in education. And we need accountability for anyone receiving funds to educate kids in Oklahoma. That means any private school needs to follow the same rules. That means assessments, credentials, special education, another laundry list of things they need to be held accountable for. If they're receiving funds that should be going to public ed, they need to be meeting the same standards that our public schools have to meet. And finally, I want parents to hold some of the responsibility for this accountability, to partner with their schools and legislature. I think and hope that we can have those same kinds of messages coming from you to our parents, that we need you to step up, because we know that not all of the issues in Oklahoma schools, that it's not because teachers are struggling or there's a shortage or anything like that. We know that a lot of it happens in home is because of their home lives. A lot of it happens because of the high ACE scores that we have. Our parents need to get involved again, and they need to feel the weight of what it means to partner with their public schools. And so we need your help just raising up that standard and that expectation. But also, parents, the accountability to advocate for their children in schools. So what we need help from you there is open doors. And I know everyone that I see in this room has always had an open door to us. In fact, you're welcoming us to keep our things there while we're going and knocking on other doors. So we really appreciate that. And we really appreciate always being invited into the conversation. And so to you, especially here in this room, I would like your help nudging and raising the expectation for some of your members across the aisle to make sure that they're having those conversations with us too, instead of hiding when they see us walking down the aisles and the halls. And then lastly, we need to keep calling on parents, and we need your help calling on parents to vote like the future depends on it, to show up and vote, but to vote educated as well. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to continuing to partner with you.
Thank you, Misty. And so our final formal panelists, because I know you guys probably have, I don't know, some things that you'd like to say or some questions that you'd like to ask maybe. What do you think? So we will get to that in just a second. But our final panelist is Superintendent Mike Simpson, and he is coming from Guthrie this evening. So please help me welcome Superintendent Simpson.
All good. First of all, thank you for having me, and also, I know I need to preface all of this that a moderate Republican in this building is a vanishing breed, but I'm here. And I appreciate the panelists because they come from great perspectives. I've got a perspective that is going to be somewhat unique. I know, first of all, I've got 30, this is year 35 in education. Yeah, thank you. And despite my youthful appearance, I have children in Guthrie Public Schools. I have a daughter that is a sophomore that as I left the house this evening, she told me how unhappy she was with the new cafeteria tables. And she had a direct line, so she wanted to get her 2 cents worth in. And I have a son that is in 6th grade. I also have a wife that is an elementary counselor at one of our high poverty elementary schools. So don't think I don't get lobbied from a lot of different directions just when I go home. But one of the things I've spent, and I am, for the OASA, the Superintendent's Association, I am the advocacy chair. And we haven't developed our formal focus for this year, but I can tell you, and I talked with Dr. Deering with COSA this morning about some of the things that I was going to say. And number one, for me, from my perspective, the most important thing, given the current climate, given the politics, given the things that are going on with the national setting and the state setting, is as we look at the national federal funding, the guardrails that are imperative in the event that the true block grants come from the federal government. And here's why I say that the most. What is this? And I spent the summer, I spent 3 days in D.C. this summer talking to our legislative delegation on the Hill about that when all of those funds were frozen. And then I spent a couple weeks ago, I spent over an hour with Representative Bice speaking about this very thing as well. Because absence of guardrails, what are those things, what are those programs designed to do? They are designed to take care of our most vulnerable students. Well, let's be honest. Their parents are not likely voters for our current state superintendent. And what has been protected? Typically, things that serve his reelection. I'm an old government teacher, and so and a history teacher, and so I go back to that often. So that is the number one thing, and I'm speaking with Senator Mullins, Chief of Staff, on this very issue. He issued the caution to me to bring the message of the importance of guardrails being set up in the state for the administration of the block grants so that the money goes where it needs to go. We talked about, and the next one, you can't legislate this. We've already heard some of it. Respect for educators. When I got into this profession, and I student taught at Stillwater Junior High, it was the first teacher walkout. And that's when I got into education. What have we learned? And it's scary that we haven't learned what we should. But respect for educators encompasses a lot of things. And it's not just on the news. It is funds for the classroom. It is making the profession something that kids want to do. Why did I choose to go into education? The outstanding teachers I had growing up in Stillwater. And funding is a part of that. Another one of my pet peeves, and I worked awfully hard and didn't succeed last session, is TRS return to work for retirees. Toward the very tail end of the session, I sat down with Senator Paxton, and he and I had, I won't say we had it out, but we had a spirited discussion, because after 10 years of serving on the OTRS Board of Trustees, I can bring a perspective there of what will actually happen to the TRS system. And it fell on deaf ears. But here's why that's important. We already heard how many teachers we have that don't want to return to the classroom. We have retired teachers that have chosen that path for financial reasons, and they are tremendously experienced and gifted educators. When I get our test results in Guthrie, and we've got a long ways to go in the classroom there. I tell our school board that. I'm up front with them. I'm on year 13, and they keep allowing me to do my job. That's one of the longest tenured. It's the longest tenured in the Oklahoma City metro area or the Tulsa metro area at one school district. But I'm up front with them about the needs. Thank you. When we have a specific area where our students are not achieving, the first question I ask our HR director is, all right, if my memory serves me right, that subject area in that building has the highest number of emergency certification teachers. It's not complicated. But lowering the bar because we don't want to fund it just to check a box, which is what the progression has been, has got us where we are. And so when we look at those test results, a way to help that, it's two-pronged, is respect for teachers, and part of that will lead teachers that are currently retired, if they have a return to work, will lead them back to the classroom. I really do believe that. And the thing about teacher pay, because I've done this for so long now, is we have let it go and let it go and let it go until it's a crisis. Then we address it, and everybody, and I'm no offense, I'm talking about some of my friends here in this building, but everybody in this building thinks, okay, we're done for a while. No. And I've got friends that I have lunch with that they go, well, we just gave them a raise. Well, yeah, and so did everybody around us again. And giving incremental raises and focusing on this as an ongoing issue, not a disaster recovery issue, would help tremendously. And, you know, let's be honest, we've done the same thing in this state with roads and bridges. We've done the same thing with corrections. You can tell I taught government. And that is what has led us down this path. I heard emergency certification from Ms. Davis, eliminating testing. I can assure you that I would love to eliminate testing, but as Senator Hicks pointed out, it's not up to one person just a little bit north of here. And I think we could get some of this done, but his solution right now is to take tests, to replace them with tests that are designed only to measure improvement, not to measure students that take one test versus students that take another test. And just saying you're going to hire a psychometrist to try and figure all of that out is a lot more complicated than anyone can imagine. And it will make the data less reliable. I truly appreciate the opportunity to share time with you tonight. I'm incredibly passionate about education. I was, during my time as a student teacher at Stillwater Junior High, and I am today. And I really hope that we can find a way to not, and again, this is the old history teacher coming out in me, to not repeat the mistakes of the past, but we keep doing it. And so I hope that discussions like this with Democrats, moderate Republicans, people from all over the political spectrum can help us find some solutions here. Because the kids that come to us have needs that most people in this room can't understand or imagine. And we stand in the gap. And I will tell you, I'll close with this. This is what I shared at our all-school convocation. I shared with our teachers and our support staff my pledge to them that I will stand in the gap for them to fend off the political rhetoric while they stand in the gap in the classroom for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Simpson. We must be running on Senate time. I'm just kidding. We've been joined by another senator. Everybody's late tonight. I'm just teasing. I'm calling her out. I have the mic. Who gave me the mic, Regina? Anyways, we have Senator Goodwin for the Tulsa area, and we're so glad she's here. All right, we have this really high-tech system tonight for public testimony, which is just when you signed in, if you indicated that you said yes, it has been highlighted, right? Modern technology, so great. So we're going to start with Mike Howe. And just as a reminder, Mike, you're going to join me up here. I gave the instructions wrong earlier. So you're going to come right on up here to the podium. We do have a 3-minute timer because Senator Kurt loves efficiency. So Senator Kurt has volunteered to keep the time keep. And you will make your 3-minute comments here. And if there's any questions, we can address those. I mean, we're not going to be super, super formal, but she's just going to keep us on time. Does that sound good? All right. Make sure that you introduce yourself and where you're from, and if you have any connection to public education.
Okay. My name is Mike Howe. I've been in the state since 1994 and been a principal at Tulsa Public Schools. I'm no longer working. I taught in California and Alaska as well. I'm here to let you know that there's a lot of us that made a decision about 2.5 years ago that our goal is to get rid of Ryan Walters. And there's some other people sitting in this room. And I think the first impression that I had was watching as his supporters bullied many members of the group that was there to go to a meeting one day, and they literally pushed them out of the way. And at that point, my wife and I both decided that we were going to start attending the meetings. And there's some who have been at every meeting since then. The things that Mr. Walters does, he does for one reason, and that's to get attention. I think one of the best things that has happened in the 2.5 years that we've been working against Mr. Walters was what happened yesterday in this room. I believe those 4 people really need our support. They need to know that there are people who are backing them with what kind of support they're getting, because I believe they're good people. I don't know their politics, and it doesn't really matter, but they do care about the children in this state. So I'm hoping I can appeal tonight to the people in this room. Reach out to them and let them know how much you appreciate what they've been doing, because it's hard, because they're getting a lot of negative feedback. And, just the porn debacle was such a joke. All he had to do was go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Let me fix that. And it would have gone away. But Ryan doesn't operate that way. I know that there are a lot of teachers that I hired in this state that aren't working anymore. So I urge some way to let them know that we can battle Ryan Walters and give them the ability to get back in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. He kicked us off beautifully at 18 seconds to spare. So thank you so much. Oh, no. So we'll move on to our next individual to come and testify. And I think it's Leanne Jimenez. Great. So Leanne is making her way up here. And again, for anybody who came in after we kicked things off, we are recording tonight just in full transparency. So please, if you're coming forward, speak clearly into the microphone. So introduce yourself and the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Leanne Jimenez. I'm a 29-year educator in Tulsa Public Schools. And in full transparency, I am the Vice President for the Tulsa Classroom Teachers Association, and I represent about 1,600 members of the 2,200 educators in Tulsa Public Schools. Thank you. One of the things I wanted to touch on is what Heather said about early career, we call them early career educators if they're in their first few years of education, and the emergency certifications. And so I just want to point out in Tulsa, the mean, median, and mode for the educators in Tulsa Public Schools. I'm a dinosaur at 29 years. The mean, or the average, if you're not a math teacher, is 7. The average number of years a teacher has been in Tulsa Public Schools is 7. They're almost dinosaurs like me. The median, or the middle number, if you lined all the numbers up from 0 to 55, because we do have a 55-year educator in Tulsa, is 3. And the mode, or the number that happens the most often, is 0. So when you're looking at test scores, like the superintendent from Guthrie said, we have people in the classroom that's their first year, and they're either they either came the traditional route and it's still their first year, or they had an alternative route, or they're emergency certified, which means they have a degree in something and the state has allowed them to get a certificate, and they're working towards college hours to give them the education background. Or because of the legislature a couple years ago, we have people who are not degreed who are teaching our kids in Tulsa Public Schools. They're working towards their degree and they're working towards their certificate. Now, luckily for us, we talked our Board of Education into making sure they're at least 21 years of age. But in a lot of the districts across the state, you don't have to be 21. So what my original point to come up is what Representative Provenzano spoke about, and she didn't speak about it, but she shouted out the teachers at home who are grading papers or writing lesson plans or doing other things for their students. What we call that is unpaid labor, and it's because of unfunded mandates. So I brought a little visual. This chart was last updated in 2017. This first little, about an inch here, is from the year 1900 to 1910, and those were the expectations placed upon teachers. Then if you go all the way down here to the 2000s, and it hasn't been updated since pre-COVID, these are the mandates or the things that teachers are expected to do. You know what we've not been given? More time to do it. You know what we've not, and I don't mean extra days, I mean the minimum plan time that the legislature sets for our schools is 200 minutes. Over a week, that's about 40 minutes a day to grade papers for, I'm an elementary teacher, to grade papers for 28 students in 7 different subjects. That I see them every day in 7 different subjects. That's 40 minutes to write lesson plans. That's 40 minutes to contact parents. That's 40 minutes to look at an IEP and individualize for students in your classroom. That 40 minutes is not enough, and it's something that our legislature can do something about. If there's anything you talk to legislators about, that would be our ask in Tulsa, is to give us some more time, and not necessarily more days, but more time during the day to do the work. Thank you.
All right, I get to introduce my own constituents, which is super fun. So Barbara Bowersox is next. Barbara likes to email me about some really creative solutions. So I'm excited to see what she's choosing to share with us tonight. Barbara.
First of all, thank you, Senator Hicks and Representative Provenzano, for the opportunity. I speak to you all as a Republican and a frustrated taxpayer. I live in Senator Hicks' district. I also live in Congressional District 5, as well as the Oklahoma City Public School District, from which I'm a graduate and from which I helped open 2 schools that started out strong. And when I went to school, the Bible as history and religions of the world or non-controversial high school subjects. During my adulthood, I have observed that the theme of local control in Oklahoma public education clashes with efforts for accountability with state funding. It is interesting to me that the two Republicans elected to the constitutional position of state school superintendent have received the most vicious attacks for their efforts to improve low-performing public schools and seeking accountability of state dollars. But there are over 500 public school districts. I call on all state leaders elected, from the governor to the lieutenant governor to the attorney general to the state school superintendent to the board members on that state board, to work toward respect and civility. Please model it for our citizens. Please model it for our students. I call on the current state school board representative for District 5 to resign due to her animus towards the superintendent, or to figure out how to work towards civility and respect for that constitutionally created position. Policy-wise, perhaps it's time to go back to the constitutional state board or to elect state board positions. I have other suggestions. First, require all levels of teacher certification to be proficient in teaching phonics. This needs to be addressed in the college curriculum, which apparently only is 1 3-hour class for elementary ed. It could also be addressed statewide so that as a state, we are proficient in helping our students with phonics to improve their reading. Second, I'm aware of a special education teacher in one of Oklahoma County's 14 districts who has to help an older male teen in diapers care for his hygiene needs by herself in addition to the other students she has. Do education dollars fund certified nursing assistants to help with these needs? If not, why not? Third, I support equality in instruction time before state testing if that continues. Too many of our 500 plus districts race to start the school year way before urban districts, which have tighter budgets and stronger unions that run the calendar. Years ago, I helped to get the testing dates changed to occur after spring break, but the equality of instruction time is still an issue. Fourth, I support restricting taxpayer money flowing to education NGOs in our state, such as OSSBA and COSA. The money needs to go to teachers. Lastly, the low reading proficiency in our state demands accountability. Schools should meet eligibility requirements before participating in extracurricular activities. Superintendents and local boards should publish the curriculum they have used for reading instruction that failed in teaching our kids to become fluent readers. Their pay and their board tenure needs to be reviewed. Taxpayers who fund at the state level over 500 districts deserve this accountability. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Barbara. She was the first one who was talking to me about all of our energy bills. And obviously, she gave you the history of how she was trying to make sure that kiddos were getting as much instructional time before the testing window opened. And I really appreciate your efforts on that. I also have another constituent on the list. We are joined by Mary Lippert.
As you can see, I'm following a genius. She is a former attorney, and I cannot speak in the same manner as she is. But I have a heart for education. I've had a heart since I remember as a junior at Oklahoma City Public Schools, Northwest Classen, standing in the picket line with my teachers because he was making $17,000 a year, which was the same amount my dad was hired at 20 years prior to that. So And I see the value in public education. Like I said, I went to Oklahoma City Public Schools. My children went to Oklahoma City Public Schools. And when our children started, I met Barbara Bowersox as we we're on a parent team to open a local school. And then we were on a parent team to open a local Enterprise Middle School, Belle Isle. Both of those, very thankful for those schools. We were able to help hire the teachers. They were local to our school. They were funded through our site-based management, and we were able to give them extra stipends as needed or when we could, when that was made available. They did an excellent job. We had a teacher of the year, and both those schools were blue ribbon schools. That was in the early, we founded Nichols Hills in 94 and reopened it and brought people back to the district because they had fled in the 80s. We also reopened Belle Isle and made that an enterprise school. And again, we brought students back to the district, bringing dollars back to the district. And that took place in early 2000 and mid 2011, 2012 timeframe. And the reason for my passion is my family has a family business. They started out as bricklayers, brick masons. We are now in our 4th generation, and we celebrated 100 years. We've been a part of Oklahoma City since the 40s. We need an educated workforce. And the only way to do that, public education, not everybody can get a private school education. Not everybody can be a homeschool parent. I did it for a year just to get my son prepared for middle school because he had some learning disabilities. Was not something I wanted to tackle. But I read recently that the Oklahoma Senate Democrats' 4 legislative priorities for 2025 include to create prosperity and greater education opportunities. I'm in agreement. And like I said, being part of a family business founded in 1920, we could not have gotten there without a quality education and proficiency in reading, math, and science, along with determination, hard work, and perseverance that created prosperity. Even as I said, 1920, in 1929 was the crash, and they survived it. And they also helped fund some of the projects they built because the people could not pay. Education is key to thriving and being successful in business. It is critical for a strong, qualified workforce. Barbara mentioned proficient reading scores. We have to have proficient reading scores. She's correct in the 3-hour requirement for reading in phonics. My daughter-in-law is a teacher, and she confirmed that. Thank you.
Well, this is a little poetic because I'm actually wearing my blue ribbon teacher pin because I was a blue ribbon teacher in Deer Creek Public Schools my last years in the classroom. So now we're going to welcome up Sandra Valentine.
Way down here. I have to go after all these tall people.
And I don't mind a step stool either. My name is Sandra Valentine. I am a mother of 5, grandmother of 6. I've been in education, I like to say, since I was 8 years old and became a teacher's aide for my 3rd grade teacher, Miss Naheda. So that's about almost 40 years now. I would like to talk about the public comment that Ryan Walters has posted on the State Department of Education website. It is sandwiched in between the Awarity app. It's sandwiched in between other things that don't necessarily have to do right with public education. So his waiver explicitly says OSDE seeks flexibility to expand its use of alternative assessments, including the classical learning test, keep that in mind, the SAT, and innovative benchmark assessments, keep that in mind as well. These would be used in lieu of assessments constrained by a peer review system. I'll say that again. These would be used in lieu of assessments constrained by a peer review system. So he doesn't want that. So I came up with a list of parents warning how Walter's ESSA changes could set up fraud. So here we go. What the law says, schools must show how all kids do, especially students with disabilities, English learners, and low-income kids. What Walter's plan does, Walter's plan changes or removes those reports, hiding poor results from the public. This is in ESSA law and in state statute. Number 2, federal law requires clear targets and consistent accountability rules. What Walter's plan does, Walter's vague goals don't define scoring until after results are in, making failure look like success. That is in ESSA and in state statute. Number 3, parents, teachers, and districts must be consulted before big changes. Was anybody here consulted? What Walter's plan does, short, poorly advertised comment periods mean fewer hard questions and more room for shady deals. Public comment closes Monday. That is in ESSA and in our state statute. Number 4, federal and state law require fair bidding for contracts. Walter's plan funnels money to certain vendors without open bids, risking favoritism. That is in state statute in a couple of places. Number 5, programs must be proven valid, reliable, and effective. Walter's plan is swapping to untested systems like 5EM. Math without proof puts kids at risk. That is in our ESSA plan and in state statute. Number 6, clear criteria are required for removing schools from improvement lists. Walter's plan lowers the bar, creating fake progress. That's in ESSA and state statute. I got 2 more. Law protects employees who report wrongdoing. If staff fear retaliation, fraud goes unchecked. That's in our state statute. And the most important one that I think is the public has the right to see government records. And so far, we have seen no drafts, notes, or emails that have been shared hiding outside influence. And that's in our state statute. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. We'll keep it moving with Allison Tate. Allison, please join us at the microphone.
Thank you, Senator Hicks. I met you about a year and a half ago with a forum that some educators had to let legislators know what's going on in education. And my platform is, I'm sorry, my name is Allison Tate. I live in Oklahoma City. I'm a product of Middale Schools. And yay! And my mother taught in OKCPS for 36 years. She graduated from Douglas High School, and we have multi-generations from Oklahoma City Public Schools. I'm going to go to a couple of quotes from a book called Maslow Before Bloom, and it is by Dr. Brian Perlman. It says, the most successful educators understand that schoolwork and achievement are both important, but the human side of things are more important. He says, if a student is hungry, tired, or scared, give them food, a nap, or a hug. This does not require board approval or a bond issue. It seems so simple. It is simple. It is also very effective. I am a school social worker. I don't feel comfortable sharing the district that I am employed by for fear of retaliation. I began teaching in 1998 through Teach for America, and now I am a school social worker, working under a different title in a district in Oklahoma. Okay, so I'm just going to go down my checklist of issues that I'm seeing on the ground. What I notice consistently is that the people who are working directly with students and families and are in the communities, we often are not consulted, and if we are, it's performative, so that the box can be checked to say, we did speak with our teachers, we did speak with our ancillary staff, they were at the table. But when it comes to implementation, it doesn't happen. Our voices are not heard. I've been with my particular district. This is my 8th school year with that district, and I've had a different assignment every single year. So I'm making connections with parents and families and students. I'm helping them get through suicidal ideation. I'm helping them move through homelessness, house fires that impact their education, their ability to attend school. And then I'm told, you're out of there, you're going to the next placement with no consultation, no ability to speak up and say, hey, can I please stay with this school, with this family? I've already built relationships. So here's my list. Accessibility to education and academic growth is so much more difficult when children's basic needs are not met. Mental health services in Oklahoma are not prioritized or given the resources and support needed to effectively serve children and families. Lack of and/or misdirected funding seems to be a major contributing factor toward this dilemma. Administrators, both at the state and local levels, do not seem to be informed about the most effective ways to provide mental health services in schools, including best practices, effective systems, and a knowledge of who school-based mental health practitioners are and what we need. Policy and decision makers don't seem to be aware of the volume of need and level of services needed to make a positive impact on students and their families. Administrators at all levels may not be aware of the inextricable link between academic achievement and mental health for students. Trauma-informed awareness and care are integral to teaching best practices. In addition to school-based mental health practitioners, other ancillary support staff, such as school nurses, school psychologists, speech pathologists, occupational and physical therapists, are experiencing challenges that significantly affect the availability of educational services for our kids, a lot of whom are treated by us who have special education needs. Teachers and practitioners across all education disciplines are reporting high levels of burnout due to being short-staffed, underappreciated, overworked, and inadequately paid. Some of you have already outlined those details. Significant numbers within each ancillary department have declined in the past 2 years where I work that have nothing to do with COVID. In one large school district, 2 long-term decades staff members from 2 different ancillary departments had strokes during the 23-24 school year and have since retired. There seems to be a lack of support or understanding and empathy from departmental and upper level administration, which results in a disconnect in meeting students' needs. In some cases, it seems to be that departmental and upper administration do not accept, seek, or utilize feedback given by staff. On the rare occasion when direct service staff are given a seat at the table, it appears to be performative. I already said that. It is possible that staff do not feel safe expressing their needs due to fear of retaliation. Students and families are often not being provided the legal services that they are owed through IDEA, special education, that are promised to them and to the taxpayers who pay for federal programs like that. There are school districts and states across the country. Can I finish this point? There are school districts and states across the country that have been implementing consistent mental health services and systems for decades. Oklahoma does not seem to have studied or taken steps to explore out-of-state academic behavioral health models. For example, there are states that recognize and utilize the role of school social workers as vital mental health school-based professionals, whose role is as much an important staple in the education system as school counselors. This includes requiring school social work certification within the state's Department of Education, similarly to teachers' certification. Practitioners who are eligible to obtain these certifications will have taken the specialized coursework and practicum within their graduate programs or additional certificate program in order to be eligible for school social work certification. School districts require documentation, etc. Change will likely remain out of reach as long as there is no meaningful inclusion or ownership or participation of the process by students and families. They are the true experts of what we need. Educators are the resources to help them get there. Instead, we need to serve as Instead, we tend to serve in a gatekeeper role where we place ourselves as intimidating and unapproachable to the very consumers and constituents and populations that we are responsible for serving. Thank you all for listening, and I do apologize for going over.
System up here. Thank you so much, Allison. When I taught at Two Lakes Elementary in Putnam City Schools, I cannot tell you how important the social worker was in that incredibly important work. And those families, once you have attachments and bonds and relationships with families who are living on the margins, I just can't imagine getting ripped out from those schools year to year. So we'll keep it moving. Alyssa Howell. I feel like an old school DJ coming to the mic. Alyssa Howell.
I am so grateful for you guys doing this. This is amazing. So thank you. I am not used to having 3 minutes to speak. That seems like forever after the quick 60 seconds. So we've been given at the school board. So thank you. Thank you so much. So my name's Elisa, and I am the director of organizing Okies. I was born and raised and educated right here in Oklahoma, both in urban Oklahoma City schools as well as rural schools, and raised 4 kids here. Now I have a grandson that just started school, and I could not convince his mother, my daughter, not, please don't send him to the schools right now. You know, that's how I feel as a parent and a grandparent in Oklahoma for the children that we have here that go to school, whether they're mine, whether they're yours, or even a complete stranger. We have been politicizing our education to such a degree that we forget that we need to be prioritizing our students. For one day, they will be sitting in these chairs, and we will be at their mercy as they decide whether or not we should have health care, nursing homes, and our own education systems, right? So looking at it from that lens, these children will become adults in our state. How do we want them to be adults in our state? How do we want them to be viewed as? Or how do we want them to represent us as they go out into the world and take on jobs, whether it be in Washington, D.C., LA, New York, or even in a different country? Right now, we are at the bottom of the barrel on everything, but nothing as glaring as education right now. That is horrific. Again, these are things that we can prioritize, right? It's a focus. Do we focus our time, our energy, our resources on our children or on politicizing teachers? I've sat up here just down the street where our superintendent calls teachers terrorists. How's kids supposed to learn when they hear that about their teacher? You know, and then you look at the fact that they don't get breaks, right? Now, when they're adult, when their brain's fully developed, 2 15-minute breaks, 30-minute lunch. It's required by law. But for sitting in education, same hours almost. No breaks, no chance to deconstruct or decompress from all of the feelings. And let's not even talk about the speaker, the social worker who was talking about all of the things that they come into the schools with that teachers have to address to get them to be able to learn. When you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, in pain, terrified of somebody walking into your school, there's so many different things that these kids feel that pressure, and we can and should be doing better. Prioritize our kids, our education, and their teachers and the things that they need, whether that be books, whether that be resources, whether that be breaks, whatever that looks like, we owe it to them and to ourselves. Thank you.
I failed to mention when Senator Bourne was in the room, so somebody's going to have to tell her, because I always feel like when you're not in the room is when people say the nicest things about you. Hopefully. I hope that's true for everyone. So Senator Bourne actually was a former school counselor. And so she has a really unique perspective from the school counseling side. And not only that, she's an attorney, so she's got the legal mind. But she also worked at the State Department of Education. And if you ever want to know anything about textbook allocations or textbooks, that is the resource. So just in case you wanted to know. Next, we have Candace J.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say, as some of the few other speakers before me, 3 minutes is a long time. We've been doing 60 minutes for what? Almost a year. I mean, 60 seconds for almost a year now. And who knows, we might not be able to speak in the following ones. But anyways, I'm Candace. I have a resident in Purcell, Oklahoma, where my 4 grandkids go to school and live in my home while I am here in Oklahoma City. I moved to Oklahoma City so I could be closer to the capital and everything that's going on with our education. And so thank you for opening this space to those of us who deeply care about public education. We know you stand with us in this fight, and that solidarity matters. For over 2.5 years, parents, teachers, and community members have been speaking out against Ryan Walters. Yet he has been allowed to go rogue, eroding trust, silencing voices, and weakening the very foundation of our schools. This is exactly why we must protect and strengthen the Department of Education. Without it, one reckless superintendent can dismantle decades of progress. We are watching private and charter schools siphon money away from our public classrooms. Money that should be going to every child, regardless of their zip code. Public dollars belong in public schools. When we weaken that commitment, we rob children of opportunity and we drive dedicated teachers out of the profession. And we are losing them, good teachers, who cannot endure the constant attacks, disrespect, and lack of support. But here's the truth. Public education is the backbone of our democracy. It is where children of all backgrounds learn together, where future leaders are shaped, and where our communities find common ground. We cannot allow it to be defunded, dismantled, or destroyed. So today I stand with you and with everyone across Oklahoma who is ready to defend public education, because every child deserves a fully funded public school, a qualified teacher in the classroom, and a future built on knowledge, not neglect. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to respond to a couple of things. I feel like probably all the teachers and legislators in here have been showing a lot of restraint because we're not used to not getting the mic. So maybe it's just me. I don't know. I shouldn't speak for everyone. But all charter schools are public schools. And so I know that we've had the number 500 kind of float around as far as school districts in the state. And I know that it fluctuates. So it is over 500. That's an accurate number. But the reason it fluctuates is because charter schools become their own school district. So I just want to make that clear that when folks are forcing or talking about forced consolidation, schools consolidating, we also need to understand that every time a charter is authorized, they become their own school district. Does that, hopefully that helps. And then on the defunding front, because, you know, a little bit of a number nerd over here, 1.2 billion. I'm going to say it again. $1.2 billion is how much the gap between Oklahoma's investment in per student funding and the regional average. So we're not talking about California. We're not talking about the East Coast. We're just talking about our regional folks. We are $1.2 billion behind that regional average. And so those are real dollars, friends. Okay. Preston Bobo. All right.
I actually wasn't going to speak until Mike kind of called me out, and he pointed out something about the Walters supporters that I don't think is said often enough. They claim to care about kids, but from firsthand experience, and full disclosure, I'm one of those who shows up nearly every month to try to hold Walters accountable. Those supporters are the ones who will be the first people to get in the faces of children and scream at them. And I know that Sandra's nodding because we have both had the shared experience of having our 13, 12-year-olds with adults in their faces screaming at them. So these are the kind of people who are supporting Ryan Walters who show up at the meetings. Also, I have a little bit of bookkeeping before I did write some things. I guess I was like, if I'm going to speak, I guess I'd better say something of note. If you're like me and a totally normal person who emails OSDE staff pretty regularly, my second favorite Dylan just reported that Quentin Hitchcock is no longer employed there. I know, yeah, I know. So, yeah, I emailed him as recently as last week, and that's why he didn't reply. He is no longer employed. So yeah, that came out during this meeting. So, I do want to give Ryan some credit though. He's highlighted a lot of popular ideas. So I think that the legislature going into this session doesn't have any excuses now. They know universal free school lunch is something that the people of Oklahoma really want. So they know that elimination of the end of year testing is something that the people of Oklahoma really want. These are really popular ideas. So the legislature can now not act like they don't know that these are really popular ideas. They are. We now have those data thanks to Ryan Walters. So going into this session, I think those should be the big priorities, right? Like those should be the big pushes. They're incredibly popular with the people. We know that school lunch programs are the #1 thing for improving student performance, period, bar none. Like, this is not like music theory. This is incredibly easy stuff. The other issue that Walters has highlighted is how unpopular book bans are. We've seen a lot of other states passing book ban legislation. So if you want to do what the people want, universal free school lunches, eliminate end-of-year assessments, and don't pass book ban legislation. I've manifested that. We'll see what the legislature does.
Asleep at the wheel. I'm so sorry. It was riveting. I was like writing down everything. Okay. All right. No book bans. Okay. Great. Awesome. Okay. Our next speaker, Jennifer Randall. You here? All right. Jennifer.
It's a lot scarier right here. I appreciate hearing from everyone today. I'm Jennifer Randall. I am a former educator, having taught special education for 14 years. I still get to work with young people. It's the best part of my job. And I get to teach them advocacy skills. So it's fun. Everyone, all the points today, I'm just like, yeah, it's great. And it's so great to hear everyone and that we're all out here. But I want to make a mention that we're missing someone in this room. Look around. Who's missing? Students. That's exactly right. They're the reason we're all here, and they have a stake in the conversations and should be here. They may have some odd ideas. I think that's okay because odd can help. But young people are smart, they're wise, and I think they can be a part of our solutions. So let's include all. Thank you. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Do you want me to call my 3 kids or I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Listen, it would be too much chaos if there were 3 Hickslings in this room. All right, we have Naya Spriggs. And did I say that correctly? I'm so sorry if I did not. Nia.
So I'm Nia Spriggs, and I do educational advocacy work. I'm also a teacher. I teach every day. We actually operate a school that actually takes kids who have been, I don't want to say kicked out, but they no longer attend their local public school. So, in that space. So I want to talk about 2 things because the advocacy work that, just because we don't have a lot of time, right now I know the conversation is coming around ending state testing, and I want to make sure that everybody knows the history of where we are today. And so in 2005, there was a legislation and things that started coming up to end our EOIs. We are one of 7 states in the unions who do not operate on an EOI system. That is end of instruction testing, and we are. So we do test too many kids maybe on the ACT. That is a conversation to be had. But when we ended EOIs, we were promised that this was going to be the end all and kind of solve some of our problems in high school. I was teaching public school, OKCPS at the time, and there was numerous conversations that this was going to be the magic bullet to get us to where we need to be. And right now, I looked up a local school's test scores. They had 20-something, and it was an urban school. They had 20-something proficiency rate in the elementary, 20-something proficiency rate in middle school, 4 or 5 in high school in one particular area. So I want to say that while eliminating state tests, I want to make sure that we understand the ramifications that go along with that. An electrician told me the other day that we have a 20% pass rate on the state electrician's test. Do you know what's on the state electrician's test? Algebra 1. Do you know what's on the ACT? Algebra 1. So when we are saying to our students that you could be a plumber, you could be an electrician, you could be even a car mechanic, it's a ton of algebra to get any certifications in those, in reading comprehension. So it is a direct reflection that we have like a 20-something% pass rate in the state average proficiency rate in reading and things like that. And we have a 20-something percent proficient pass rate in some of these electricians, heating and air tests and things too. So that there's a direct a connection. And so it's not necessary that we need to end testing as much as we need to increase proficiency dramatically in our schools in order so we can tell a child that you can be anything that you want to be. My son attended a school with no chemistry teacher. I volunteered at a school last year, and the girl said this year was the first year I actually had an English teacher. She was in the 11th grade. So in that situation, we're not going to produce the students that we want. I am constantly telling people why we are concerned about the apple pickers in the Rio Grande Valley right now. We need to be more concerned about why everybody that works as an engineer, almost 100% are from Asia. They are not from America. And I don't have any problem with people coming here and getting a job. But MIT reported this year that for the first time in many of their high-ranking PhD programs, there are no American-born students. So what are we doing here? And I know Ryan Walters is not very popular, but when he tells me, Nia, we're only 2 points from the national average, it is true. So this is not something that Oklahoma problem totally, because Oklahoma averages a 17 on the ACT and the national average is 19. So if we want to be on the forefront, so while there is a conversation in education, that's the last thing I want to say. We know that we were told for years also that increasing proficiency would also increase math and science and everything else will rise with it, and that has not been the case. And we have schools here in Oklahoma who have 67% proficiency rate in reading today, and they still only have about 30% proficiency rate in math. In Massachusetts, we have the same exact thing. So some of our top school districts in the country, they have a great proficiency rate in reading, but they have not been able to move it in math. Same thing in Mississippi. The Mississippi Miracle moved it in reading. It did not move it in math. So I've been working with the cohort to actually try to have this conversation about while we are implementing the Strong Readers Act, and that is very important, so I don't want to diminish that. We need to also be simultaneously having a conversation about how we increase math, because we know that it's not going to take us to where we want to be. It may move us 5 or 10 spots, but it's not going to take us to number one.
So one of my friends works in curriculum at Putnam City in math, and we had this conversation a lot last session. Senator Seifert had some legislation on trying to parallel the Strong Readers Act for mathematics, looking at some of the Numeracy Project in Alabama, which I do think is probably one of the leading innovations in the country right now, and figuring out, again, it costs a lot of money. So we are having that conversation. Nia, I'm going to check that box because we're all in your corner on math for sure. Okay, please do. Okay, Sean Cummings. And I didn't mention, he's also a constituent. Yes.
Up. I only got 3 minutes. Hi, everybody. This is going to be a much more civil tone than you're used to seeing me do. First off, thank you, everybody, for being here. I really do appreciate it. I know we were just talking about spending a lot of money on schools, so I just want to address that first. It's really, really expensive if we don't. So I'm a businessman. I've been in business for 40 years. The reason I'm in business is because I had teachers that went out of their way to show me I was great at some stuff that didn't make any sense to anybody else, but it worked for me. And those people went out and did that. So I owe my ability to make money, my ability to employ people to them. And I was terrible to those teachers because I was a lousy student, and they stuck with me anyway. And then they would still come to the businesses I owned and spend money. And I know they were just going, see, I'm not a total failure. I got this guy. But it's important to recognize that. It really is. Most of the people here tonight that have spoken that I do stuff with at the State Board of Ed are teachers. They're not just activists. They're all actually really smart. And I'm the guy that can explain things at a simple level. That's my skill. So I'm here to just look at this and go, you think education is expensive? Let's talk about prison. Let's talk about early death. Let's talk about putting somebody through school till 9th grade and we spent $100,000 and we get none of that back because they get killed in a drive-by. We spend $100,000 on a kid, another $40,000 in high school, and maybe we get some Pell Grants and everything to go through, and then they die right after college, and we get no recouping of our money. I know it's really weird to talk to it about a business, just numbers. We're better off to invest more. We've dropped out mental health, so guess which kids are a little more vulnerable? The kids that need the mental health. Why are we taking the kids that are already vulnerable and making it worse? In all honesty, I'm from a legacy of teachers, educators, and administrators. They gave their lives to other people's children and then came home and had to take care of us. And looking back at that, you just go, people figured out they were suckers. They loved other people so much that no matter how shitty the money was, how shitty the space was, how shitty they got treated, how much they got abused, they would go ahead and show up and love your kids. That's what we need more of. And to do that, we need more money.
I didn't have my beep machine ready. We'll just ask for forgiveness. It'll be fine. Okay, so our final speaker in this part, because I'm going to put them on a spot in a second. So clear your throats and drink your water now. Andrew and Anima. Okay. All right, come on up, Andrew.
Hello, everybody. I'm gonna raise this up a little bit. Good evening. My name is Andrew Onima. I'm 19 years old. I know we were talking about young people, so you got one. So that's good. I'm 19 years old. I grew up in Oklahoma all of my life. My connection with our current state education system is that I went through it. I've gone through multiple public schools in the state, both in the Moore School District and the OKCPS School District, and I've seen firsthand what happens when we aren't funding to our best of our ability. I remember classrooms with outdated textbooks, teachers doing their best with the very limited state help that they got, and even students crammed into overcrowded classes. And I've personally felt the dread of trying to do well when the system that is currently put in place for our students isn't really helping us succeed. Through that, Oklahoma students are strong, and we know that we never give up. And through the teachers and the good people I've found, I am now a social policy student studying at Northwestern University up in Evanston, Illinois. And while I got there, I did not know what exactly I wanted to study, and so I was just kind of putting my foot into the water, and I somehow ended up in the School of Education and Social Policy. And so that's where I am now. And being a student in that area has made me understand even more clearly how funding affects not just grades, but entire communities. Underfunded schools drive good teachers away. They make it harder for students to stay motivated and leave our state struggling to build the workforce and opportunities that we need. I've also seen how budget cuts, when we make budget cuts, we're not just trimming costs, but we're taking away our opportunities and hope in the foundation for our state's future. And I just want to remind everyone in the room that investing in education always goes beyond the classroom. It means looking into other state issues as well, like affordable housing, because how are students supposed to do homework if they don't have a stable place to go to? Our eviction rates are pretty high. And also our prison system, like how are we supporting our kids who have incarcerated parents? And also, I think we all feel this right now, our immigration system, because really some kids from certain backgrounds may feel unsafe to go into the classroom because they don't know if they're going to be able to come back. Investing in education is not isn't charity. It's investing in our Oklahoma kids, our communities, and the leaders of tomorrow. And I also just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of my past teachers, my current teachers, and also all of you in this room, and that this next generation is not going to give up on the community that is building us right now. Okay.
I mean, this was totally planned. That was right. Oh my goodness. Wow. Like, thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate you sharing those words with all of us. Thank you so much. I know. Well, I'm going to ask you to. And actually, Mike, you get to start because you popped up. So, I'm totally. I'm kidding. Leader Kurt loves it when I get into teacher Hicks mode because it's a different vibe than when I'm usually out there. So it's fine. Okay. So your final assignment, my friends, because our panelists did an incredible job. Can we give them another round of applause? All right, tricky trickster. In about 4 words, what would you want to tell teachers? Because we are kind of still in that back to school transition. All right, Mike, you're first. Come on. Actually, you guys can just stay there. How about that?
So I was always that kid in class too. So let's stand in the gap together.
I would say, from the parent perspective, for teachers, take heart. We're with you.
I'm a middle school English teacher, so 4 words means nothing to me. Yeah, 6, 7, 41. Yeah, exactly. I think that I would tell teachers to stick with it. It's worth it, and to use your voice.
Friends, I just cannot tell you thank you enough for coming, for caring. Truly, sometimes it feels like, some of us in this building are just screaming into the wind, and nobody can hear us. And so seeing you all here this evening and listening to all of your testimony has been really helpful for me personally. So thank you for my therapy session. But also, I really hope that this does spur momentum. I think we spend a lot of time talking about the problems and very, very little energy working on solutions together. And so I really hope that we are at that tipping point where we can use our voices together and have those common goals of improving education for all of Oklahoma's children. So thanks so much for coming out. I'm sure some of us will hang out up here at the front if you want to come say hi. But please engage with us on social media. I think a lot of you probably follow our accounts already, and the TikToks and all the other places. We do our best to try and elevate our message from the minimal avenues that we have. So thank you again for coming out and being part of the solution. That's right. I'm so sorry. It's been scrolling, but we have 2 more capital conversations coming up, and they are themed as well. And oh yes, gotta love a budget conversation with Leader Kurt in October. And then in November, we'll be talking about bill ideas because that's when we'll start coming up on our bill filing deadlines in November. So follow us, stay engaged, stay tuned. We hope that we can continue to make forward progress. Thanks all.